What's good on YouTube? This is Crazy Samurai 71 here, bringing you another video. Today I'm bringing a video on Kamen Rider Build, episode 16. This episode was really good. I liked it a lot. A bunch of things happened in it that were really important and exciting. The episode, by the way, is called Weaponary Hero. So I want to get into it. As we know, last episode it was confirmed that Sento is actually Katsuragi. This whole time that has been a fact. Now, some people actually were even debating whether or not this was actually true. Thing is that in past episodes, when things have been revealed, the next episode usually explains how it's true. So keep it in mind that when they say something that seems a little bit funny, there's always going to be an explanation. They're not just going to say, oh yeah, you're this, and then not explain it. So that's what does happen this episode. So I wanted to get into that. For starters, what does happen is we do get an explanation as to how that is the case. What we find out is when Suichi was on Mars, he gained this ability to change a person's face. That's how he was able to do it with some of the past workers that he employed, and also what we ended up seeing was Katsuragi was trying to leave Faust, and what happened was that as Bloodstark, Suichi put his hand on him, and well, actually what he did was he basically knocked him out. Then suddenly in the past, you know, Taru, which is Sento's prior life form, comes into the building. He's freaked out by Bloodstark, and then suddenly Bloodstark throws something at him that knocks him out, actually basically kills him, which is like a blade, and he swaps Satoru's face with Katsuragi's, and then he puts Satoru's face on Katsuragi, making him become Sento Kiryu. So that's basically what happened there. And then what we ended up seeing also was is that, you know, the question was, well, how come he doesn't remember everything? Usually aren't these experiments very temporary and short term? But he also explains that he also gained the ability to get rid of a person's memory. So that's really important because of the fact that that's why Nabeshima lost his memory for an extended period of time. Although in Nabeshima's case, his memory was gained back, while in Sento's case, it wasn't as much so. He only has fragmented memories, meaning that he must have had a real memory wipe on top of the experimentation that he has. So, like, everything was kind of screwed up. And this basically really confirmed for him, like, what really happened. You know, he really was changed into this new body. And the thing is that we also see that later on, we find out that he probably wasn't even that, you know, when he was found and first found by like Suichi, he probably was put there beforehand, and then he came back just to be there so that he could tell him who he is and bring him to the cafe, which makes him feel even worse, you know. So that all does happen. Eventually, what also occurs is that everything is overheard by Mizora. So she actually knows everything about her father now. She doesn't know everything, but she knows enough to know that, like, he really is as bad as she thinks he is. So that's really important, of course. And you know, Sento now becomes really upset. He doesn't know how to really handle himself. He feels terrible because of all the people that he affected that were turned into smash monsters, but not as himself, as Katsuragi. So what does happen is he ends up doing some work. Well, actually, then we end up seeing back at the Total Institute that the Prime Minister talks to some people in his workplace, and suddenly he is knocked out. Like, he's basically put out of it. It's not clear as to whether or not he's dead, or if he's put into a coma state or something else. I would imagine possibly dead, but it's not very clear. And the idea is that in that sense, Bloodstark does this to put Gintaku back in power, because as we know, Gintaku was going to be put out, like it was gonna be done with for a certain period of time. This was them basically fixing that and basically showing how Bloodstrike was able to keep him still involved in everything. So Gintaku was again put back into power, even though he was found out to be who he was, which is kind of a big deal because, you know, there's no choice in the matter. Like, they have to put him in power. He's the only one that would make sense to, in that awful way. But yeah, so what does happen following this is we end up seeing Sento, you know, being upset. And Ryoga, you know, he's annoyed because he knows that now that Kasumi was, you know, basically killed by Sento, and there's also more to that. I mean, that happened a while ago in the show, but he wants to at least feel better about himself, so he asks Sento to fight him. One thing I wanted to note is that you actually notice in this episode, during that part, that he's working on something. That is actually going to be the Splash Driver for the next episode, so that's kind of nice to see that we actually got that early heads up as to how that's going to happen. And we'll get into that later, but yeah, he is working on the Splash Driver. Following this, what we do end up seeing is that Sento fights Ryoga. Ryoga is fully into it, while Sento is really upset and really not showing his true strength. He initially does something pretty interesting, which he does another trial form. By that I mean it's a form that is not something that's the best match, but it's one of those unique combinations. So like, you know, in this case what he does is he takes Kaizuk and Gatling, and he does that as a combination, which is, you know, a unique form that it's not a best match, but it's a unique form. And that's kind of a cool combination to see Kaizuk and Gatling. So that's neat to see that. Last episode we had another one of those trial forms, but this one was nice because the last one I think we had like Nins. I think we had like something comics. I'm forgetting right now, but yeah, I think it was Lion Comics. So yeah, so anyway, Sento fights using Kaizuk Gatling. He has the bow, but he doesn't do very well, and Ryo is fully committing to it. He's using his Dragonic finish, but the reason why he's doing that is because he's remembering and realizing all these things that had happened to him and how he was responsible for them. Like, he was remembering his experience with Kasaragi's mother and other people that he encountered over time. And then Ryoga says, like, show me your full strength, and he suddenly uses Rabbit Take, Sparkling, against Ryoga, and he basically, like, takes him out. At that point, what ends up happening is that Sento walks away from Ryoga afterwards, and, you know, you can just tell that things are not going great. And then following this, Sento ends up sitting at a bench with Mizora, you know, talking about how terrible things have been. And, you know, Mizora tries to comfort him with describing him as being narcissistic and, you know, saying these things that are not necessarily nice, but basically describe who he is and how he wants to be a hero, and he shouldn't gripe this way because he's too good. He deserves more than that. Even if he had this past life, he deserves more because he does better. He's a better person than that. And Mizora, and you know, it definitely makes him feel a little bit better, but it's not perfect. Eventually, what does happen is we end up seeing Gintaku back in the Toto government building where the prime ministers talk typically, and what we end up seeing there is Sento's talking to two of the prime ministers, and what happens is that he basically shows that he has the Pandora's box back, and he tries to say the fact that, you know, both of you, I'm sure, have wanted power, and you both have wanted to gain it. And, like, the Hokuto leader basically tries to pretend like, oh no, why would I do that? What are you saying? You're crazy. I focus way more on agriculture and children, not on that. And then he's like, you know, you're lying. You put all your money into military. And so it's clear that something is going to arise from this. You know, this is not a peaceful thing to just say to someone, especially a government leader. So yeah, that does happen. And that's going to be important later this episode. So following all this, what we do end up seeing is Sento ends up seeing an attack occurring. What this attack is a attack from some Guardians and Smash Monsters. These Guardians the Guardians especially are noteworthy because they have a different symbol on their chest. Typically the Guardians have a symbol that represents Totoro. These Guardians have a rose, which represents a different nation. Now that's something that isn't very clear to Sento initially because he doesn't really expect anything of it, and he wouldn't really know much of Hokuto in that sense, because yes, that is what happens. So what does end up happening is that Sento ends up transforming. He uses Hulk Gatling to fight some of the Guardians and also the Smash Monsters. He uses that for a while. He also uses Nin Comics, which doesn't really work very well because he's too wrapped up in his own emotions. Eventually, what does happen is that he's detransformed, and then Ryoga appears, and he's like, "Why are you just sitting there and doing this?" And he basically tries to comfort him and explain to him, you're as a person, you're not there to just create these monsters. You might have created them at one point, or you might have created Smash Monsters, but in reality, you're someone that tries to make everyone have another day. You weren't here just to exist. You're someone that's trying to give people hope, and he basically tries to remind him of who he truly is. And then following all this, the theme song plays, but it's actually the extended theme song, which is nice because that's smart, because they just actually released the full theme song online, which I've been wanting to hear it finally. So this was their first opportunity to play the whole theme song over this big battle where Sento ends up using Rabbit Tank, and then he uses Octopus Light, which is cool because we haven't seen Octopus Light in a couple episodes, and he also uses Rabbit Tank Sparkling. So they do all this, they have different combinations and moves and everything, and eventually Ryoga sets him up into an attack against a Smash Monster, which he does his Sparkling finish, taking out the Smash Monster, and then at that point he ends up extracting the essence from the two Smash Monsters that they end up fighting. So then at that point what ends up happening is that Gentaku basically explains how these Smash Monsters were not made by them, that they were made by another nation, because Sento asks, like, wait, where did these come from? And Gentaku basically explains that Hokuto just declared war on Totoro this morning, and so that at that point Sento is really like, what's this going to lead to? He doesn't know what to expect at that point. And then we end up seeing that there are 3 people on top of a building that are looking out. 2 of them are in their human forms, and 1 of them is in their Smash form. The thing is that these 3 are going to be important next episode because they're going to be 3 major Smash Monsters that will be able to switch between their human forms and their Smash forms. It looks like, which is going to be interesting because most of the time the Smash Monsters stay as Smash Monsters. They don't start one way and then end another way. No, these do. These ones can go either way they want. So that should be interesting to see. Following this, we also see that like one of them is really, really ridiculously strong. Like he does a blast of energy that actually like destroys buildings, and I don't even know which city. It might have been Totoro. It's not clear though. But then following this, we end up seeing Kamen Rider Grease come into the scene, which is really cool. He appears, we end up seeing his belt, we end up seeing his chest, his helmet, and then he just walks in. Now, as far as things go, there's not much to say about him other than the fact that he looks really cool. He's the next rider, which is interesting, and he's a rider that's made by Hokuto. So, each nation, so this is the 4th faction now that exists in the show. There's Faust, there's Bloodstark, and I forgot to also mention that Bloodstark is actually working with Hokuto, which actually would explain how what do you call it? Grease has the Splash Driver because he shouldn't have it unless Bloodstark gave it to him. So yeah, Bloodstark is working with Hokuto. Obviously, it seems like Bloodstark is trying to set up war between all the nations. Like that's his ultimate goal for whatever reason. But yeah, he is working with Hokuto. We end up seeing the government leader speaking to him and all that, and she's cheery. But yeah, that's really interesting. We also found out recently some really important details regarding what do you call it? We found out some really important details regarding Grease, because Grease is going to, the character is called Kasumi Sawatari, and the actor, we already found out who he is. He is actually played by Kohi Takeda, who previously had played the character Otoya Kurenai in Kamen Rider Kiva, which is really cool. For those of you that know who he is, he's actually really neat because he was the father of Wataru from Kiva, who Kiva was the main rider, so it was kind of nice to see that transition over, and I actually like that a lot. So I love to know your guys' opinions about this episode. I personally found it really good. I can't wait to see how this will progress. In the preview, what we do see is that the war is going to happen. We also see that Sento's going to give Ryoga that Splash Driver that I mentioned earlier, and he's going to be able to access a new form, which is called the Kamen Rider Cross, the Charge form, which he'll have a very translucent blue look to him, but it will look like him in an interesting way, and I'm definitely looking forward to seeing how that will work out. It is his power-up form, but I'm not sure how that's going to work otherwise. Hopefully it's not his only form that he's going to get this whole season, because it's kind of early if that were the case, but you get my point. We'll definitely have to wait and see what that means. Please remember to like, comment, subscribe. Tell me what you guys think, and I'll see you guys in the next video. So until then, guys, I'm Crazy Samurai saying one, and bye, guys.